So, CBC News is reporting that for the last 36 months now, home prices have managed to go up, which is absolutely crazy. Now, if you know me, one of the things I despise more than anything is that Gen Z is getting screwed over, right? And it's not just some people tend to think it's like an opinion or that, Gen Z has it easy. And since Gen Z has it easy, we just like to complain because, like, look at all of our modern amenities. It's like, but in reality here, Gen Z is being screwed over constantly, right? And I have the data to prove it, right? This is not just some fringe conspiracy theory here. So again, last 36 months, home prices have risen, right? And what the boomers will say is that, oh, well, have you stopped eating your avocado toast? Now, me, on the other hand, I will say, okay, well, let's actually look at the numbers. And so I made a little chart here, right? And it's got the median individual income, followed by the median home price in the country, and then followed by the price to income multiple, right? So like how many years do you have to work in order to afford that house, right? Now, there's going to be a lot of caveats that we're going to talk about in this video here, but I want to actually show you guys the numbers to prove that the American dream is dead, at least with respects to home ownership for the young Gen Zers. Now, first things first, median individual income. It's like, what does that mean? Well, a lot of the times people use median household income, but I kind of find that as like one of those bullshit statistics, right? Like nobody cares. Like I don't give a shit if your household income is really high. It's like, you know why I don't care? It's because what is an individual's thing? Like somebody's quality of life shouldn't necessarily be dictated upon whether or not they have to get married. Is that not crazy to you? I know some people find that perfectly normal. Me, on the other hand, I do not. And so I am a huge fan here of individual income and looking at that and how that correlates to things. And, over time, you got to understand that, we've sort of moved into a situation where, yes, of course, right, the individual income is going to be lower because we now have two people working outside of the home. Whereas back in, say, 30s or 1940s or 50s, like it was usually just only one person was working outside of the home. And eventually, that transitions into everybody pretty much working now because, we just can't afford it because the wages have gotten so low. It's like, again, you double the labor force, of course, all of a sudden, like the wages are going to get slashed. It makes sense. I do understand that here. But what I'm trying to get at here is just like if you're just an average American here and you're not going to be getting married, and even if you are, like the median individual income has remained, I'm not going to say stagnant, but like relatively stagnant in comparison to the mortgage prices, right, for the home prices. So let's take a look at this. So in 1950, right, if you earned $1,917, median, just as an average individual, right? The home price was about $7,300, right? And that means that you get a multiple of 3.8 times. It's like, now that's again, that's pretty substantial there. Now, one of the things that you could say is, okay, well, you get that mortgage rate of 3.8 times. Does it get worse over time? And how much worse does it get? And the answer is absolutely it gets worse. It gets way worse. And so instead of being in a situation whereby, we have to, maybe rise up a couple, maybe two multiples or whatever. Now we're at 12.2, right? So in 1970, it was $4,177. It goes up to $23,400, so multiple of 5.6. And then, from like 1970, like all the way to like 2019. And I wanted to use 2019 as one of those things because it's like after COVID, the world just kind of got insane. And that's not just, my own personal opinion. That's an actual fact. I mean, the United States government spent as much money on COVID to give every single person over the age of 16 about $38,000 in cash. Now, did you get $38,000 in cash? I bet you did not. You know why? Because the government is corrupt and they don't care a damn about us. And so, anyways, from 1970 to 2019, it goes up, just a little bit there. Like, what is that? Like 3.3 times, which is still terrible. Like, that's still absolutely horrible. But in the same breath, you can understand, like, maybe it's somewhat manageable, I guess, right? It's like, but then out of nowhere from 2019 to today, so 7 years later, it goes from 8.9x all the way up to 12.2x, or just, again, hitting that 3.3 X multiple, which was, the exact same as it was from 1970 all the way to 2019, except we did that in 7 years as opposed to 49 years, right? So 7 times faster in terms of getting worse, right? Just in that period of 7 years, right? So I want you to think about how bad that was, and it is going to continue to be. I don't see any evidence necessarily that the home prices are going to go down. Now, one of the things that you're going to say, and again, this is, of course, the good counter here, is you're going to say, okay, well, Gen Z has all these extra amenities in their home. They got some extra appliances. The mortgage rates are going to actually be lower for Gen Z than they were for our generation back in the day. And one of the things you're going to say is, okay, well, the houses were a little bit bigger. So let's factor all of that stuff in here, right? Let's say that the mortgage rates and the, let's say, appliances, because you can buy like the best Samsung's appliances on the entire planet, and it's like 10 grand to outfit your entire house, right? So like, don't act like that's like some big expenditure, like fuck off, right? So let's add 10% for that, right? And then we're gonna add, let's say, 20% for the size of homes, right? Let's do that. So, you can just take these numbers and you can look at how bad it was in comparison to, say, let's use 1970 as an example, right? So if the multiple was 5.6, right, and let's say you times that by 1.3, again, we're being very generous here, that means that it should still only be about 7.3 times. But are we anywhere near 7.3 times? No, it's 12.2 times, right? That multiple. So like income to, price to income, multiple. So it's ridiculous here. I mean, like, Gen Z cannot win, right? Even when you factor in everything like the housing size and everything like that. Like, you cannot win. And then you pair that in an economy whereby nowadays, in order to get ahead, right, with respects to your job and your financial situation, you now have to go to university, right? And you'll say, okay, well, you don't have to go to university. Most people don't, blah, 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 don't have to use their degree. It's like, well, at the end of the day, like, they're still not going to get hired for their shitty job, whatever it may be, if they don't have a degree. And nobody's going to take them serious, But having said that, there is some caveats to this, which are coming out now. So maybe I want to eat my words here a little bit, that you're actually more likely to be unemployed the more education that you get. At least if you're a man, that's in any capacity whatsoever. Anything after high school, you're more likely to be unemployed. And if for a woman, it's like anything after a bachelor's degree, the more education you get, the more likely you are to be unemployed. So it's actually better to be a woman with respect to education than it is to be a man, which is like, man, I mean, women kick our ass in education, but like, dude, man, we're just taking the blows left and right. It's just really, really bad here. And, the cost of university is extremely expensive, and the opportunity cost, what you give up for going, again, is incredibly expensive. That's just more debt that you have to carry on that the former generations did not. Their high school diploma actually meant something, right? And they had better quality education, I would argue, than we do today, where everybody's being coddled, which is just absolutely horrible. It's like there's absolutely no sense of individual responsibility anymore. I mean, responsibility has died. I mean, it's effectively dead. And so, like, they actually had a good product, which was their high school diploma, and they actually got some value out of it. But whereas today, we don't get that. And, even the degrees, it's like, most people don't work in their field. So you could say, okay, well, it's not useful there. And it's like, shit, I'm going to agree with you. You're more likely to be unemployed. I'm going to agree with you. It's like, but in the same breath, a lot of people are being shoved down that path. And even if they figure that out, it's too late before they understand, hey, wait a minute, I shouldn't have went to university, right? Pair that with the rising cost of everything like food and groceries. I mean, it's unbearable. It's untenable for these young people. And to get ahead is something that is just not really possible unless you have a pretty good head start, or you're really lucky in some regards, or you work really, really hard and you get really, really lucky over time. But that's essentially the world that we live in nowadays. But the home ownership, it's a very bad thing. And you could say, okay, well, you should just rent then. You should just rent, or you should do your 3.5 down. It's like, okay, but then you got to do like your mortgage insurance. So there's a problem there. Rent has consistently gone up, even worse than home prices have gone up historically. So, like, ask your grandparents how much rent cost, back in 1970, and it's like they'll tell you some just absolutely outlandish number, and you're like, Jesus Christ, it's like a one bedroom today is like, $1,500, and you're like, okay, man, but it's absolutely crazy. It's like when the average home price, right, is over $550,000 in the United States, right? If you just like think logically for a second here, that's $110,000 in cash that you have to have in order to purchase a home. Who the hell has $110,000 in cash, let alone Gen Z? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous here. And so, like, obviously there is something to be said about, each generation having their troubles. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm sure that the boomers were, looking pretty, like, their life was pretty good to the Gen X's, and the millennials were probably like, damn, the Gen X's, like, they got it good. And now the Gen Z's like, damn, the millennials had it good. And so on and so forth here. But absolutely crazy stuff. And I just want to give you guys some food for thought here today, because it's something that I don't believe that we're addressing as a society at all. When you look at Donald Trump, for example, one of the things that he could have done and should have done, but decided to not do, was actually sign a bill to whereby it would be illegal for these giant financial institutions and corporations to effectively own single family homes. Right, but did he do that? No, went to his desk and he just ignored it. So, I mean, this is a man who actually does not care about the individual, and why would he? I mean, his billions of dollars were originally made off of real estate. Now, I probably could have made a lot more just investing in the market, but he made his real estate decisions here, and so his real estate empire. What is he gonna? Is he gonna want to like make it so that way like he has less autonomy over his own real estate? Why the hell would he do that? That doesn't make any sense. And he's gonna want to bring down the home prices? Absolutely not. He said word for word, verbatim, something along the line, verbatim, but something along the lines. So I know the irony in that statement, fair. But essentially, you can just look this up here. This has been multiply documented. He said this countless times that he actually wants to raise the home prices. He doesn't want to see the home prices fall. Which again, like it's one of those catch-22s because obviously you don't want to see your investment go down if you're like an average American who's already has a home. But you also, in the same breath, you want new people to afford homes as well because that way they can, again, start investing into their future because, like obviously it's probably better to rent over 30 years. I mean, it's probably better to own a home over 30 years than it is to rent. At least in a lot of situations, you'll have more money coming out of it than you would otherwise. So, I mean, it's just logic here. It's just basic math. And so, with that said, guys, I don't know. There's some crazy stuff here, but it feels like to me, the American dream has been dead for the Gen Zers, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. So, with that said, guys, hopefully you did enjoy the video here today. My name is Dr. Ian Phillips. You can follow me on social media at Ian Phillips USA for some more content. All I'm saying here, try to get us 600 subscribers, baby, and we'll be bringing you some more content here every single day. Yesterday, I had a little hiccup because apparently none of my audio recorded. Who knew, right? I guess that's just how it works sometimes. But with that said, guys, we'll talk to you later, and peace.